Hey guys, and welcome back to ZRZ, bringing you the review of the Nacon Revolution Pro controller for the PS4. I unboxed this a few weeks back, so if you haven't seen that video and want to know what came in the box, definitely check out that video here. But this is a review after a few weeks of using the controller, and this is sort of the second professional gaming controller released by PlayStation. This is alongside the Razer Raiju, which there's also videos of on the channel, so definitely check those out as well. But that controller retails for £150, whereas this one retails for £90, so it's a lot cheaper compared to that one. So if you're on a budget and you're looking for a professional gaming controller, this might be the one you're looking at. But getting straight into the review, this is a wired only controller, so as you can see, this is the cable that plugs into the controller, and most professional gaming controllers are wired only because they are, well, a wired connection is the fastest connection, and that's most important with these controllers. But it is a little bit annoying that there is no wireless option. I don't like this proprietary connector that this wire does have. So the connector isn't a normal micro USB connection like a normal PS4 controller. It's some weird 5-pin connection which I've never seen before. So if you do lose this cable or want a spare one or anything like that, you may run into issues. So I'm not a fan of this proprietary connector. But in the box you do actually get a carrying case, so hopefully this should help keep the controller and the cable together, so hopefully you won't be losing it or anything like that. Also in this pouch there's an extra pocket with a zip on there, and this is to actually store these. And these are little metal weights that came in the box for this controller, which you can actually insert into the bottom of the controller in each of the handles. So if you actually use this key that you get, you can turn these little compartments and pull them out, and there's these two slots for weights on each side, so you can actually customize the weight of the controller to what feels most comfortable for you. And I did adjust it to what felt most comfortable for me, and it was quite nice. It worked quite well, and I felt like you get a nice range of weights in the box to adjust it to what's best for you. But I was just thinking, if that feature wasn't there, would I be asking for it? Probably not. Let me know what you think in the comments if you wanted to adjust the weight of your controller, if that's an important feature to you. But to me it just felt like an additional thing, but it's nice that it's there. Getting into the main features of the controller, if we flip over to the back, we do have 4 additional buttons on top of the normal PlayStation buttons. So we have M1, M2, M3 and M4, and these are fully programmable buttons to whatever you want. But you do have to use the companion app on the PC, so you have to plug in the controller to a PC in order to adjust your profiles and map all of these buttons. Now I did like these M3 and M4 buttons. They kind of rest in the position of your fingers when you're naturally holding the controller, whereas the M1 and 2 buttons didn't feel completely natural. When you're playing a game and you've assigned them to useful buttons, they don't feel very natural to press. So I ended up just using the M3 and M4 buttons instead, and these ones ended up being a little bit pointless because they're a little bit awkward to press. Within the companion app you can also adjust the analog stick sensitivities and the dead zones, as well as the triggers, so you can actually create hair triggers within the companion app, and there's a lot of adjustability within the app, and it works quite well. You can adjust pretty much everything and map all of the controls, as well as create your own macros, so that's quite nice. It's a very feature-packed companion app. The only downside is you can't actually map the buttons within the controller like you could on the Razer Raiju. It has to be plugged in to a computer with the companion app. But the good thing about this controller is that it does store 4 profiles. So once you've got your profile set up on the computer, you can store 4 of them on here rather than 2 like the Razer Raiju. So I really like that. You can have quite a lot of different profiles, maybe for different games, stored on the controller, and you can switch between them using this button at the back, that the profile button, as you can see, and that switches between them all. This switch at the back here, mode 1 and 2, that's simply just to adjust between the standard mode of the controller, which is like a default PS4 controller setup, and then when you switch to 2, that goes into advanced mode with this red ring around the controller, which looks really cool. Getting into how the controller actually feels in the hand, it's overall fairly comfortable. I did find this curve here was a little bit too tight, as you can see right there, and your finger kind of does catch on this part there. So that wasn't that comfortable, and also these triggers are a little bit of a tight angle. As you can see, they're kind of completely angled across the controller like that, and I can see why they've done this. It does feel quite ergonomic, but when you're playing a game you naturally want to press the trigger in more of a flat motion like that rather than a full angle, and that's probably because a lot of us are used to the sort of Xbox One and PS4 controller trigger style, where you end up pressing them a little bit more flat rather than pressing them into an angle into the controller. So that was a little bit difficult to get used to, and I ended up pressing on this sharp corner. But overall, the way it feels in the hand isn't too bad, and it does have this Xbox layout with the analog sticks. I personally prefer the symmetrical layout, but I can see why they've done this, and a lot of FPS gamers prefer this layout. The analog sticks themselves, though, they feel really good. I really like this combination of convex and concave analog thumbsticks. They feel great. They have a nice lightweight feel to them, but they feel sturdy. The buttons on the face of the controller are just kind of normal feeling buttons. They're kind of large. They do have a really big feel to them, but they're not micro switches or anything like that compared to the Razer Raiju. So they do have that normal sort of soft feeling to them, and quite a large travel, as you can see right there. They push in quite a lot, so there's nothing really special about those buttons at all. Same with the D-pad. It's one of those 8-way D-pads, and although it's quite quick to use in the menus and things like that, I'm just generally not a massive fan of these 8-way D-pads, but it works. The touchpad, obviously, same goes for that. It's just a normal touchpad. It does have this texture on there of the PlayStation buttons, which is really cool. But yeah, works as a normal touchpad, no problems there. One feature that I really liked about this controller is the fact that the light bar is actually there. Unlike the Razer Raiju, this shows you the color that you are when you're actually logged into the PlayStation, and it looks really cool there when it glows with the color over here. So it's just quite nice. It doesn't have the light bar up here, but at least we have something to show what player you are. So the overall feel of the controller is fairly good. There's nothing major to be complaining about, but I do think that it's missing the feature of the micro switches on these face buttons, because that's one of the things that the Razer controller had that I really liked. It made the sort of feedback on these buttons really quick, and you can see how it could help you when you're playing games professionally. But other than that, it felt quite good playing for long periods of time. But in comparison to a normal DualShock 4 controller, it didn't feel like I was really playing on something that was a professional gaming controller. It did just feel like a normal controller at times, especially because I was only using 2 of the additional buttons and not the ones at the top, because they were a little bit awkward to press. So it did feel like it was a normal controller with these 2 extra buttons at the bottom, and I'm not really that bothered about this layout of the analog sticks. I can deal with both, even though I prefer symmetrical layout. And the vibration motors inside the controllers do feel a little bit small, so in comparison to a normal DualShock 4 controller, it did feel like the motors in there weren't really as punchy as a normal DualShock 4 was. A normal DualShock 4 controller costs around £45, so this is almost double the price, and it makes me wonder whether it's actually worth spending that much more on this controller. Whereas on a DualShock 4 V2 controller, you can actually connect it up with the USB cable, and you can achieve that wired connection for instant sort of feedback with your controller, and you can actually adjust and map all your controls on a normal DualShock 4 controller using the normal PlayStation 4 software, so that's not really an issue. So the only real additional things that this controller is giving are these 4 buttons at the bottom, 2 of which are a little bit awkward to press, and then sort of the adjustability with the sensitivity of the analog sticks and the triggers. But other than that, is not really anything major. I'm not really going to include the adjustable weights as a major feature, because I feel like it doesn't really mean much. I don't know, you can decide whether that's actually worth double the price of a normal DualShock 4. For me, as a fairly average gamer, it's not worth dishing out that much money for this controller when you can actually do a lot of the things with a normal DualShock 4 controller. In comparison to the Razer Raiju, this feels just as much overpriced as that controller does, because overall the Razer Raiju is a better controller. It feels better in the hand. The micro switches on there actually feel very tactile, and it does feel like a professional gaming controller. But both of them do have a really high price point for what they actually are. And if you're not a serious, maybe esports professional gamer that takes your career really seriously, and you're just a fairly average gamer, none of these controllers are actually worth dishing out that much money for. If I had to recommend one over the other, it would probably be the Razer Raiju, and that's not considering the price point. But if you are on a massive budget and you still want a gaming controller with additional buttons, then the Nacon is a better option. But personally, I wouldn't go for either. A normal DualShock 4 will do the job, especially the V2 version where you can plug in a cable for instant input. So that's my overall verdict on the Nacon Revolution Pro controller. It's not a bad controller, and I had a lot of fun using it. but it just depends whether you can justify the price of it. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.